We get 5.6 for the season as a result. Has any cleanup ever been worse than that? Set a new record. You all, ugliest cleaning job ever. Disgusting cleaning job. Great job. Parker lost all of his wealth in a single mishap. There is a chance that Empire will collapse. Last year, he hit it big with more than 12,000 ounces of gold. But now there's more strain, more hazards, and the gold is out of sight. Parker Schnabel may have just experienced his worst nightmare. There was a beginning in 1896. Everything changed when the Klondike goldfields were discovered outside of Dawson City. Even after more than 100 years, Parker Schnabel is more determined than ever to realize his ambition. The enormous 7,500-acre Dominion Creek claim is located 50 meters southeast of Dawson at Parker Stake. There was a lot of buzz about this place last season. Parker and his team unearthed a staggering 12,000 ounces of gold in a treasure trove known as the Money Pit. But Parker is determined to make a splash this season. He's putting all his eggs in one basket, going north into a new zone called the Long Cut, in the hopes of continuing that gold-rich run even further. It's the sole part that has been successfully removed thus far. Plus, according to Parker, it might contain gold worth more than $7 million. The creek that empties into Dominion was incredibly rich, and that's gold to run. From what I gather, you have some familiarity with this region. This is the stuff of gold miners' dreams, isn't it? And now we get to the catch. Moving and washing a pile of dirt will be necessary for Parker's staff to meet his enormous 10,000 goal for the season. Every week, we discuss rocks, sand, and gravel. Math is tough. They will require a minimum of 430 ounces of gold weekly for the following 6 months without fail. It's not simply difficult. There has never been anything like it. No one on Parker's crew did it. We have a lot of gold to find, and it won't be simple, says Parker himself. They are also aware of it. It's exhausting, there's pressure, and then there's Boss Parker, who has excessive expectations. That being said, that is indeed Parker's exclusive method of rolling. Mining isn't the only thing happening this season. The key is to stay alive. The most difficult season of their careers is upon Parker's crew. They're under more pressure than ever before to sluice. Additionally, Parker would prefer it if there are no bumps in the road. Great thought, but I'm afraid it will be easier said than done. The truth is that everyone is concerned. They're after more than just the gold. Problems include never-ending tasks, increasing expenses, and short deadlines. Right now, SLU is at the top of the list. Time is of the essence. While the crew sets up Big Red, their enormous wash plant, close to the mountains of gravel that were left over from the previous money pit, they cling to optimism. In Parker's opinion, those heaps still contain gold, and he is willing to risk a lot of money on it. Now we get to the meat of the matter. Getting this far has already cost them a fair penny. And the pressure is building up now. The fact that gold prices are rising is the only positive thing happening to them. Having gold on hand is necessary for that to work, though. Moreover, Parker is not currently doing so. Lots of gold is still waiting for us. It won't be a picnic. Our company there's a lot of work to do, and our employer has unreasonable expectations, which is making things worse. Approximately 1.5 miles up the valley from the initial money hole, the crew had entered the Long Cut, the sole stretch of bare land upon which they were relying. One of Parker's most important operators, Mitch, was currently engaged in an important project, destroying the thick, resistant overburden that had buried the rich soil underneath. Buried behind a layer of sand, clay, and gravel, this pale layer was their sole chance of achieving the season's lofty objective. However, this was just the beginning of the rough patch. Nobody was expecting the operation to go as well as it had. The tempo decelerated, the greater than before, and the difficulties more formidable. What was at risk was obvious to all. This was no ordinary mining operation. Season. For the whole organization, it was a watershed event. The difference between record profits and financial catastrophe could be as small as one wrong decision or wasted hour. Those leftover heaps of gravel from the money holes appeared like a good target on paper. Last season, they were successful in producing gold, and according to Parker, there was likely more to come. Yet, a drawback did exist. By rerouting equipment and workers to those spots, they were removing resources from their primary zone, the long cut, which was also the zone with the highest potential for producing gold. A two-golfer strategic conflict broke out. Go for the gold that could be hiding in the old cuts, or put all your eggs in the new, unproven basket. The squad couldn't afford to do both because time was running out. Nothing about the season was building slowly. Quickly, it was falling. The crew was caught off guard by the early hour of equipment installation, but the urgency to start the project drove them to work at top speed. The mainstay of Parker's operation, the wash plant referred to as Big Red, had to be relocated and set up in its new location prior to any subsequent events. Saul Sleuth, this season is going to be our focus, and it's certainly not turning out the way we expected, Parker teased. The fate of the business hangs in the balance here. The assembly process was analogous to putting together a steel jigsaw puzzle, piece by piece. Cockatrices swung with great care. Operators skillfully guided each component into position using hand signals. After positioning the plant, the next step was to fasten the feeder, an essential component that would introduce large quantities of dirt into the clean system. The workers worked tirelessly to lift the big objects. Because even a small error may result in equipment damage or days of delays, precision was of the utmost importance in all movements. The parts finally came together after an extended period of non-stop preparation. Standing, wired, and connected, Big Red was prepared. The path ahead seemed obvious. The moment had come to load the initial pay dirt. They didn't squander any time. After getting the wash plant ready and running, Jack rolled in the excavator and grabbed the season's first bucket. The moment the machine swung around to deposit the dirt into Big Red's hopper, all eyes were on it. This was more than the beginning of a typical workday. The season's first true test had arrived. It could have been the beginning of a record-breaking run if the pay layer below contained gold and the plant functioned properly. The stress was clear to everyone working there. 10,000 ounces of gold was one of the greatest objectives ever set by Parker during the Gold Rush. That target was worth about $25 million at the time of record-high gold prices. But until they dug out real gold, none of that currency existed. Keeping those Sol boxes operational day in and day out was the only way to reach that point. Even at the beginning of the season, this was an improvement over last year. Once more. Then, getting operations going had taken a lot longer. Every moment of every day, the crew had been moving machinery, carried equipment over rough terrain, and had to start over. It was a time-consuming and wasteful procedure. Now the camp was centralized, which was an improvement. All was okay in the yard. There was no delay in starting the wash plant. For an instant, everything seemed to settle down, as if perhaps, just possibly, they had finally gotten ahead of the game. What a relief to hear Big Red's engine fire up. This is being observed as it travels through the wash facility on these conveyors. Plus, this wash plant will definitely discover any gold in the money pit. According to appearances, Big Red was sound. Without a hitch, it began processing its initial batches of gravel and was up and running. Above all else, the system held valuable riches. The workers were filled with optimism as the machines began to turn over and Big Red finally struck pay dirt. The crew was waiting with bated breath to see if Parker's risk-seeking riches in the old gravel that piled up from the money pit would pay off after a tense setup and a disorganized beginning. The season's offerings were laid bare for them during this cleansing. It was Chris's job to verify the outcome since he is one of the most reliable team members. Everyone patiently waited for the numbers that would either raise spirits or cause the staff to go into panic mode. The outcome followed. Very little gold, just 5.6 ounces. They worked non-stop for 34 hours straight, hauling, washing, and spooing, and that was their only accomplishment. A pitiful return of only $14,000. Then, without warning, everyone in the room went silent. Nobody wanted the record-breaking cleanup, but it happened nevertheless. Not only was it a sluggish beginning, the workers has never seen a cleanup like this before. It was just utter bewilderment and annoyance for a split second. It had required several days of preparation, relocation, and big red setup. Every bit of time, energy, and resources seemed to have gone into nothing. I apologize for making you all do that. Obviously, this isn't how we'd like to kick off the new year. No, I think it's a little troublesome. After all their initial promise, the gravel mounds were now practically useless. The worst part was that this was how the season was beginning for them. With a goal of 10,000 hanging in the balance, Parker's squad was now mired down at 5.6. So, the clock was already ticking and there were 9,994.4 miles remaining. How much this setback had cost them just made matters worse, both monetarily and in terms of forward motion. Their progress was further hindered by each slip-up and lost day. Such a defeat may have a catastrophic impact on a season where they have very little room for mistake. Instead of preparing more favorable land, resources were used to establish a wash plant in an unproductive area. The gang had to get back together, change their plans, and find a way to make up for the time they had missed. Even as the strain kept building. Nobody was hoping for this kind of launch, but Parker would need to dig even deeper than before if he wanted a shot at his enormous target.